Hi, and welcome KCIW listeners at 100.7 FM and online at kciw.org, Brookings, Oregon. Hi to our syndicated listeners at KZZH 96.7 FM, Access Humboldt, Eureka, California, and a welcome to our KSKQ 89.5 FM, Ashland, and 94.1 FM, Medford, Oregon listeners. This is Joyously Free Radio with me, Joanie Lindenmeyer, the best-selling author of None Better, An Amazing Love Story, and co-author of Joyously Free and Healing Religious Hurts. I'm so glad that you are tuning in and listening to us today. And you're in for a treat. In just a few minutes, I'll introduce our speaker. But meanwhile, a little bit about me. I'm a resident of Harbor, Oregon, a retired high school teacher, a recent author, and with friend and film producer Michael Gorse, created a short film called Wowzer, and it will be shown at the Wild Rivers Film Festival coming up in August. So excited about that. But most of all, right now, this very place, I love life, and I love being the producer and host of this high-energy, joyously free radio show, so named by my friends Will and Viv. This show talks about LGBTQ plus stories and tips, along with religion, church, faith, spirituality, and joy. Simply said, the purpose of the show is to share and radiate and spread abundant joy and freedom, hence the title. It's also my second book that I co-authored with Elizabeth Ann Atkins. So in this radio show, just as in every day in my life, there's no hate speech, there's no hate behaviors, and no bullying. And it will be blasted with the 3 C's. And today we're going to hear a lot about that. Courage, confidence, and collaboration. I think that's the key ingredient for today. Together, let's sparkle and seek understanding. Let's think out of the box or no boxes at all. Let's be open-minded as a parachute. Let's begin our daily salutation with a saying that Carol and I said for 40 years. I'm going to say it's a brand new day, and your response is it's never been lived before. So here we go. It's a brand new day.
It's never been lived before.
Yes. I love that DJ voice in you, Matt. Oop, I gave that a little hint away. Thank you, Matt, for saying that. Yep, just a few minutes we'll hear from Matt. But first, let's open our hearts as we ask the divine to shine light on our community and our world. I excitedly believe and hope in the power of the spiritual, and that Jesus, God, Spirit, whatever name you put on a higher being, is always with me and always with you. So do not be afraid or troubled, saddened, or depressed. We can find that joy and peace deep within us. So let's center ourselves. Take a big, deep breath in with the good, and out with doubt. Again, breathe in through your nose with hope and out from your mouth with fears. Last one, take a big deep breath in with joy and out with worry or despair. In the name of our Mother Earth, a Creator God, a Redeemer, a Holy Spirit, the blowing winds, we say, hi, it's a new day with you. Well, today I picked a reading from the Bible from John 1. And it is, God is love, and whoever abides in love abides in God and God in them. And I think I picked that one today, not knowing that Matt was going to be our presenter, but that wherever we go, wherever we abide, wherever we live, whatever house or situation we're in, we know that love can be there, that God is that love. And so oftentimes we move from an apartment to a house to wherever we go. Maybe it's a car. Maybe you don't have a home. But wherever we abide, it's also in our heart, not just a physical building. And so that love is always, always there. I hope that makes sense to you with my little short reflections today. But, as always, let's lift up our friends and our family. May we find divine guidance and grace all day long. May we give and listen and help people understand who they are to help us do better in our life as well. It's a collaboration. Lord, we thank you. Amen. Oh my gosh, yes. Oh my gosh. Well, listeners, you're in for a treat today. I have with us an incredible person that I heard speak at a conference a couple months ago. Let me introduce you to Matt Vorderstrasse. And Matt is the Housing Authority Executive Director. He's going to explain more of what that means. But our topic today, this is what I love most importantly, our topic today with Matt, and he has a vital amount of energy as well as information to share. But our topic is impacting generations of housing. Why, how, and for whom? Matt, welcome to Joyously Free.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. I am grateful to be here, and I'm grateful to join in with all of our listeners. And yeah, I'm just here to share about hope and the work that we're doing to help create hope in the community. And so, as Joanie said, I am the executive director of the North Bend City Coos-Curry Housing Authorities. What that means is that my job is to oversee the day-to-day operations, but also the strategic direction that the housing authority is moving in. And I've been in this role on the South Coast for about 4 years now. I originally came from the Salem area and then also Jackson County. I've been a lifelong Oregonian. But when I came over to the housing authority world, I came over from Jackson County from working in shelter and housing and that world over there. And so when I came to the housing authority here, I brought that philosophy with me and began changing the way that we did service partnerships and changing the way that we did structure so that we could end up not only building housing that's just affordable housing, but also housing that is there for everybody.
Yes.
And that's ultimately the goal, is to create housing that could build that bridge, that could meet somebody with outreach that's literally homeless today. And then if we're able to put them into a shelter, and then from there to transitional housing, then to permanent supportive housing, then to affordable housing, we could literally build an entire pathway to homeownership. And that pathway would be have on-ramps for everybody to be able to get in at different points in time. So you don't have to be homeless to get there. But the whole goal is to build a housing continuum where there's alignment, where when the housing authority, for example, is building North Bend family housing up here in North Bend, there's 105 units. 20 of those are going to be permanent supportive housing. The whole goal of doing permanent supportive housing is so that you provide that pathway for people coming out of homelessness. And so we are able to take the investment from the state and make sure that we are building that bridge down into the lower forms of housing that we want to get people out of. And then at the same time, we have to then focus on the other side of that bridge, where we need to also make sure that we're focusing on partnering with the first-time home buyer programs and partnering with workforce readiness and employment and those folks that can help really give upward mobility to our tenants. And we have to then embed those within our services too, so that we also begin creating that pathway for people to be able to go from affordable rental housing into affordable home ownership. And so it's, when we talk about this housing continuum that we're building, we're calling it SPARC, which stands for Service Providers and Regional Connections. And it is, the whole goal of it is to take several organizations that are all doing good work and all doing work that is trying to serve the same populations. And we get ourselves coordinated to where we start pushing the ball in the same direction.
Yes.
To where even though we're going to be still our own autonomous organizations, the community is pushing in the same direction so that we can create alignment and create linkages between all of our different programs and all of our different housing sites. One of the things that strikes me about housing is that oftentimes when you have the market rate homes going in, or even typically an affordable housing development going in, they're standalone projects. And so they're oftentimes not thinking about the other components around them in the housing continuum that they need to impact. And so what SPARC aims to do is to create that alignment and create that dialogue so that we stop building in silos and we start actually building in the direction towards each other. One of my favorite analogies about to use with affordable housing is that it's like building a railroad. When you go out and survey and you start building the railroad, you will do different groups that'll go ahead and some behind, and they all start building in both directions. And through constant measurement, they're able to actually build towards each other to connect the tracks. And that's the part that I think we're missing in terms of how we think about housing in the United States and in the world, is that the typical silos that we have to break down those walls so that they talk to each other and so that they create linkages so that people have upward mobility. And the idea with it is that, one, we can literally create a system that could meet somebody that's homeless and then put them on a path to the right size housing for them. For some, that could be home ownership. For others, that could be permanent supportive housing. For others, that could be affordable rental housing. It could be a number of things. But the goal is to build up enough capacity to where eventually we don't need as much shelter production because we're building enough supportive housing production to make up for that.
You bet.
And so that's kind of the goal of where we're going. And as we're doing this, we're building housing and we're standing up the SPARC network on the South Coast. We're also starting to get inquiries from other communities on how we're doing this, what we're doing with this, how we're building these connections, and also getting it to where organizations get out of the mindset of competing with each other and building each other up.
You bet.
And so it's been a lot of conference talks lately. I was able to speak at the Equity Coalition conference down in Curry, where I met you.
Yes.
I recently went over to New Mexico to talk to a supportive housing conference over there in Taos, New Mexico. That was an experience. And the model is starting to be, because I do a lot of posting on LinkedIn about it also, it's being shared as far away as Australia and New Zealand. And so the housing crisis that we're facing in the United States is not unique to the United States. This is really a worldwide issue that is going on right now. And what we're doing on the South Coast is resonating with other corners of the world. And so as we talk about it more and as we continue to prove it and stand it up here, we're doing so with an increasing amount of eyes on the work that we're doing. And that part to me is exciting because that creates the pressure that we have to perform, that we have to do it. But at the same time, my dream is that we build the SPARC network here on the South Coast, prove that the SPARC model is a model that can be replicated.
Right.
And then it starts spreading to other communities like a ripple effect when you throw a rock in a pond.
Oh, and I'm all into that. I'm all into that, and it's bold and it's bright because we're talking about people's lives. We're talking about generations, and what I love what you've said so far too is the railroad analogy. That is awesome. And the more that we collaborate, who are you collaborating with in Curry County, Matt?
Well, in Curry County, we have Brookings Correspondence, who is one of our primary partners down there. In fact, we're also going to be working with the SAFE project. So we have a project down in Gold Beach called Anchor Point Housing, which is going to be 19 units. 18 of those will be prioritized for seniors that are at risk or coming out of homelessness. But then we're also going to have one unit that's going to be set aside for domestic violence survivors. And the reason why we're building that one in is because within the city of Gold Beach, there's a shelter there for DV. And so we are trying to also make sure that as we build housing, that we look at the service providers around us and that we're also helping build them up too with it.
Right.
And so what that ends up doing is we'll have a set aside unit that they can fill. But then we're also going to engage with them on providing ongoing supportive services to that household. And so the housing authority itself doesn't necessarily have to become the service provider, but we create the brick and mortar space and also provide the program opportunity for other providers to be able to do that.
Right. So what's those 19 houses, Matt? Is that permanent housing or is that emergency housing? Tell me a little bit more about the Anchor.
Yes, so that's going to be permanent housing. So that technically could be a forever home for people if once they're there, especially for senior housing. You tend to see that.
And seniors, like what age would you consider seniors?
Because we're going to be working with a homeless population coming out of there too. We're identifying seniors at 55 and over.
Okay.
And the reason for that is because there's been a lot of studies that have come out that have actually showed that being chronically homeless and experiencing that actually it accelerates aging. And so oftentimes you'll have somebody in their 50s that might present as somebody in their 70s. So we did so with the being mindful of that senior for those that have been chronically homeless is different than senior for the general community that hasn't experienced that.
Well, that's cool to know that it's 55 and above and it's permanent housing. And so is this in the actual stages of being built in Gold Beach? What's our timeline looking like?
Yes. So we're actually looking at this year starting actual construction. So currently we are working with the state of Oregon on financial closing. And we should be actually closing on that site in August. And from there, what we're looking at is
And where's the site?
It is the Gold Beach Village Center.
Oh, yes. Okay.
So we have purchased that through a partnership with the state of Oregon as well as NOAA, and we also had grant support from All Care CCO to do it too.
Uh-huh.
We were able to purchase the site for an adaptive reuse to convert it from commercial to residential, and then build up a complex there.
Cool. Cool. Okay. And so then when does a breaking ground happen then? Probably 6 months, or give me a bigger timeline of this.
So I would envision that we'd be breaking ground probably in about 6 months from now down there.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and then from there, construction is going to be starting in early 2027, possibly even the fall if things accelerate. But early 2027 is kind of the conservative guesstimate that we have for when we can actually start swinging hammers over there.
Okay. Which then probably needs another 6 months or a year before a resident can actually move in.
We'd probably be looking at late 2027 because it's not a huge project. So I would imagine that by the end of the year, we should be at a point where we're ready to start looking at lease up.
Okay. Okay. So late 2027, we'll have another complex or anchor. What do you call it? Do you call it a complex? What do you call the actual building?
We're just calling it Anchor Point Apartments.
Okay. Anchor Point Apartments.
Yeah. Initially, when we first got the site, we just called it Ellensburg because that's the street that it was on and that we weren't recreated. But then we got inspired, and so we decided to rename it Anchor Point Housing.
I like that.
Yeah.
I like that. So that's Gold Beach. Now, Curry County's a little bit bigger than that. Anything planned for Brookings, Matt?
We are currently meeting with different real estate agents down there to look at different sites. There are a couple that we're trying to kick the tires on. And honestly, Brookings would be one of my final goals for the South Coast would be to build a site down there. Because currently our units in Curry go as far south as Port Orford, and then soon to be Gold Beach, and then Brookings would be the last town that we would need to build in, and then we technically have housing in every town in the South Coast.
Nice. Oh, that would be so awesome. In the Crescent City area, Del Norte County, just south of us in California, they opened up their new emergency housing, as well as they've got the Battery Point apartments that are literally being built as we're talking.
Yes. I actually, Del Norte Mission Possible, I've actually consulted with them for the last 4 or 5 years.
Good.
And so I still support them. I work with their development team. And so their shelter campus was something that we worked very closely on from in my spare time doing consulting. And so that one is especially amazing to be able to see that happen, because if they can do it in Del Norte County, we can do it in Curry. We can do it in Coos.
That's exactly right. And a lot of times we think, oh, this is a real big project. How do I, as a local citizen, be aware and can contribute my thoughts and ideas and my heart to this? What do you recommend for that?
I think there's a number of ways. I mean, as it is, we are oftentimes trying to create feedback loops with the community.
Mm-hmm.
And so making yourself available for those types of things, to where when we need to pull a focus group together, that we can do that. The other thing I would say is once we have construction going on down there, I'm going to be doing site tours. And so if you wanted to help gather troops to be able to come look at a site in development so that we can continue to keep that excitement going, that would be another way while we're in an active development, is I can be a tour guide and you can bring me folks. And or maybe we could do another radio interview where you're going through with a camera and a tour.
Oh my gosh.
I think there's a number of ways we can get creative with it.
Right. And for the local listeners now, you can be thinking of your own area, your neighborhoods, your town of where this might be a really good place for the community, because it's a community situation. It's not just an individual. It's a community.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I think that's one of the parts that's missing from some of the dialogue is the community component to it. There's a ministry down in Texas called Mobile Loaves and Fishes.
Oh,
and they operate a place called Community First Village, and it is a master plan community that almost looks like a resort, but it is a large scale homeless development where they have everything from tiny houses to modified RV spots to even teepees in some cases, where and just all sorts of different types of housing that people can choose from. But one of the things that they have often said in their trainings down there is that they believe that the leading cause of homelessness is the catastrophic loss of family. And that the only way to fix that is through building community. And I have found that to be really true in the work that we do. It's the relationships that get developed. It's the connection that happens. And so I think building the housing is part of it, but then you have to build the community around it to really make that change.
And that community consists of so many things, from education to service to food to a listening heart.
Absolutely. I think a listening heart's a big part of that, because oftentimes people want to be seen. And so being able to be authentic and be empathetic and just allow that unique connection to happen, I think that's what people are starving for right now.
Exactly. Yeah, and I know, when you get involved in a personal level, it's phenomenal, because you're going, oh my gosh, this could be my mom, my aunt. I think of the seniors that are literally living in their cars right now in Curry County, but when you become personally involved in their lives, it's something different. It's something different.
You become invested. It's once I know somebody, it's harder for me to look away.
Yes.
It's harder for me to block it out. And oftentimes, I know I used to do a lot of interviews with people that were coming out of homelessness. And oftentimes that's a group that feels invisible. I complained about, but also ignored. And so it's a very difficult spot to be in, because you don't feel like you actually belong anywhere.
Right.
And that psychologically damages people.
Yes.
My wife often talks about which came first, and the mental illness or homelessness or both. And in many cases, person can have minimal mental health experience homelessness, and then have serious mental illness issues after that, as a result of the trauma.
Exactly. Well, and you just said a few minutes ago, it happens a lot because they don't have family. They don't have somebody to care for them and love for them. And some people are just steps away from that happening in their own life when they become a widow or they lose their children or life changes.
Absolutely. And that's the part where I often talk about the housing journey is not a linear path, because you can experience those things at any point in time. It's if you lose your spouse, there's a chance that there could be a regression in somebody. They might be in a home ownership situation, but because of the loss of income from that, they end up back in the affordable rental space. And so we have to have a housing continuum that is available to meet people where they're currently at.
Yes.
And that's ultimately the goal, is when you're building each component from, if your community needs transitional housing, you build transitional housing. If you need affordable housing, you focus on trying to build affordable housing, and then also the middle income housing that we need. And when we create those and they connect and we're able to get fluidity of people moving back and forth between things, what it does is it helps create flow that allows for that movement to happen. And when we have gridlock, which we currently have, nobody's able to flow into anything. And so you end up flowing through the cracks into homelessness in some cases. And so we're trying to fix that system that somehow over the generations has been disconnected. And we can trace a lot of that policy stuff back to deinstitutionalization of things, which obviously needed to happen in various ways, but we also missed the opportunity back in the day to invest in the community safety nets that these folks would be
cared for
by.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
And so now, 40 years later, we're trying to fix this generational issue.
Right.
And I think that when we talk about building SPARC and we talk about building the housing, we have to look at generations forward.
There you go.
How many lives is this housing going to impact? How many households can this housing save?
Yep.
And
Matt, I'm going to have to cut you off. Can you believe how fast this time has gone? But I think you just, I know, but I think you hit the nail on the head. Look at it generationally. Look at it what we can do from our hearts. And I just want to thank you for providing us with so much information today. You've been a light for so many people and for our community. Congratulations on everything going on. Seriously. Congratulations on that.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I can tell that you're personally involved in this. It's who you are. It's not just a job or a business. How do people get a hold of you really quick, Matt, before I have to sign off here?
So my email is usually the quickest way to get me, and it is mvorderstrasse at ccnbchas.org, and I'll go ahead and email you the correct spelling of it so that it's easy.
Perfect. And then we'll put that on the link and all that kind of stuff. And people, you can always get a hold of KCIW if you have any questions about anything. But you know what? Oh my, I gotta cut this down. Here we go. We got to thank the listeners for tuning in today and listening to Matt and all of his explanations about housing. We hope you've been inspired and challenged. We hope that you've just gained something that you can help other people with. Matt, you were phenomenal. High tens if you were here. High tens. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
You betcha. Mike Gorse on sound, thank you. Tom, Candace, Rose, everybody at KCIW, everybody at KZZH, Access Humboldt, KSKQ over in Medford, Ashland. We want to give thanks to everybody, and especially the sponsors of the show, Steve Van Cleve and Sally and Todd Roy. Let's end this by saying, smile big, wear bright colors, and collaborate. Connect more. Be a spark. Thank you, Matt.
Thank you so much.